with a whole new one. Now this one I ain't never heard of. Like this is a story I ain't never heard of, and I'm pretty sure you probably ain't heard of it either. But you gonna hear what today? Yeah, you finna hear about it today. You know what I'm saying? Let's get right into it.
In 2006, a postal building in California would come under attack.
The one guy came in at 9 and started yelling at somebody shooting.
There was four of them rapid succession. The assailant, almost unique among spree killers.
That is extremely rare. Most women simply aren't that violent.
Jennifer San Marco would dispatch her victims with cold, deadly efficiency.
She didn't miss in shooting anybody.
As the clock ticked, the body count rose.
She literally walked up to them and shot them almost point blank.
And with it the question, why had this petite, middle-aged woman embarked on her ruthless killing spree? Santa Barbara County in California, one of the most desirable regions in the Golden State. Nestled between the city of Santa Barbara and the university campus of Isla Vista is the coastal community of Goleta.
Goleta is a great town, a great place to live.
It's nice. You know, they call Goleta, I guess, means the good land or whatever.
There's a very strong environmental element to the community, preserving open space, preserving the beach, preserving wildlife.
In the Goleta city limits, serious crimes against persons are a fairly rare occurrence. We only had one homicide in the last 14 years.
One homicide in 14 years? That's a good place to live. For real.
But on one day in 2006, the peace in Goleta would be shattered in a way no one was expecting.
January the 30th was a normal day here in Europe.
It was a clear day. It was unusually warm for that time of the year.
For most of Goleta's population, including the sheriff's department, the daylight hours had been relatively uneventful.
Made it through the entire shift. It was pretty much a routine. About 5 p.m., it was the end of our day, went home, did the stuff that I normally do when I get home is family dinner.
Deputy Clay Turner was one of a small team of officers scheduled for the evening shift.
Me and a couple of the other guys on the shift had earmarked a local place in town that we were going to grab our meal at. We ordered our meals, and we had just gotten our cups for us to fill ourselves with our drinks from the fountain when the call came out over the radio.
The 30th of January 2006, around 9 p.m., U.S. Postal Facility, Goleta. 911 calls began coming in from workers at the mail processing plant.
Sheriff's Department, how can I help you?
Yeah, there's the person that is shooting everybody.
There's somebody shooting? Copy 5 en route. This is the code 3 for shooting at the post office.
I knew it was the real deal just by the tone of voice and what was going on. This has got to be righteous. This is not somebody dreaming this thing up. It's not firecrackers.
My coworkers start yelling, oh my God, somebody call 911. And then, this suspect starts shooting her.
I can't imagine what the people in the restaurant were thinking, but we sprinted out the door and got into our patrol cars and started heading towards the call.
It was like he went to her job and just started shooting people at point blank range.
911.
Shots have been fired.
Okay.
We have one down for sure,
One down.
at least.
Law enforcement rushed from all directions towards the large building, where hundreds of staff were employed, aware that many lives were potentially in danger.
I'm responding, but I'm talking with both cell phones to my ears, like I'm talking to different people, and steering with my knee. I had to get down here as quickly as possible.
How many people did you see get shot?
I saw one, and then, when I took off, I saw her, shooting somebody else.
What was going through my head was if there was somebody that was on the loose inside that facility, knowing how big it was, my fear was the potential of finding many more people that had been shot and either wounded or killed on the inside.
Officers arriving were confronted by several employees fleeing for their lives.
Everybody started coming out, and they all were primarily running. They were in absolute panic. They had lost it. There was no stopping them. They just wanted to get as far away on foot from that location as they could, and I mean, they're like running. They basically came right down their main driveway.
It appeared that someone had begun shooting in the staff car park and then entered the building, but little more was known.
We didn't know if the shooter had left at that point or was still inside. We were sorting through the crowd to try and find somebody who would know something. We were getting broken information as to what the suspect might be wearing: blue jeans, red shirt, dark hair, maybe a male, maybe female. And this is all within a matter of seconds of us pulling up that we're trying to do all this.
Who and where the shooter was were unknown, but one thing was clear: there were dead and dying postal workers at the scene.
When the deputies arrived, the first thing they did is tend to the people that were down in the parking lot. We got into what they describe as a diamond formation. I believe all of us were armed with AR-15s in addition to our sidearms. As we started transitioning down the sidewalk, the first victim I saw, she's looking right at me, but I knew she was gone.
We've got 2 black tags, 2 red tags, and the place is still not secure.
Copy, so far 2 black and 2 red.
I was in the newsroom, and we monitor the police scanner, and we heard a shots fired call. And it was pretty clear very quickly that it was a large incident, because there's certain phrases that they use regarding whether or not there's a dead body or an injured person. They use red tag and black tag.
In one of the aisles of the parking lot, I saw 2 more victims that were down. So me and the other guys, we breached, we went into the building.
Inside the door, the deputies discovered Postal Supervisor Charlotte Colton, shot in the head, but still alive. Ahead of them, a corridor leading to the main warehouse.
You're taught to go to the sounds, the shooting, find the suspect, stop the suspect. Well, there's no shooting. All that's coming forth is the constant machine sound. And you could hear the phone ringing and ringing and ringing.
As news of the attack spread like wildfire among the postal workers, there were rumors about the identity of the killer, centering on an ex-employee.
All the witnesses, well, at least many of them, all had said that they recognized the shooter as being a former employee of the facility named Jennifer San Marco.
44-year-old Jennifer San Marco had worked at the Postal Service for around 6 years, before leaving the job 2 years before.
When she first started there,
2 years?
she was fairly normal, about as normal as anybody else was. I talked to her on numerous occasions, because a lot of times when you're working side by side, you talk to people. And she was very, very intelligent.
She was fairly quiet. She worked at a case where she would get a tray of letters, and what she would call pigeonholes. You'd put them in like this. She was actually fairly attractive. I mean, when she first started, I'm sure some of the guys thought she was a pretty good-looking girl.
She seemed, it was kind of both gregarious and a loner. She was one of those people, hey, Jennifer, how you doing? Oh, hey, Robert, how are you? From across the aisle or something like that. And she was friendly. You could approach her, you could talk to her, but there was also a side to her that was kind of a little bit standoffish.
Now, 8 years later, the quiet former employee appeared to have the blood of her colleagues on her hands and was somewhere inside the giant sorting room.
That shit ugly, man. Motherfuckers can't even go to work in peace. Like,
in January 2006, former postal employee Jennifer San Marco was on the loose with a gun inside a giant sorting room in Goleta, California. Rushing to the scene, sheriff's officers followed a trail of bodies from the car park into the postal facility. In the entrance corridor, Deputy Clay Turner and his team discovered the seriously wounded postal supervisor, Charlotte Colton.
My number one goal at that point in time was to get the medical professionals in to cater to the two that were down in the parking lot, the one on the sidewalk, just in case maybe I was wrong, and she was still alive, and to deal with the still breathing Miss Colton.
Clay confirmed that we had 4 people down. He wanted 4 ambulances, and it was my plan to have 4 deputies to be basically the armed guard to go in with these rescue units, of which I ended up being one of the rescue units because we were down in staffing.
Although dreadfully wounded, Charlotte Colton appeared to be responding to the deputies that guarded her.
It almost seemed to us like her breathing became more calm and relaxed when we talked with her.
While Clay and his team provided cover, the rescue crews deployed.
The paramedic was supposed to check for signs of life. If there was signs of life, no treatment, no nothing, just get that person, put them on the gurney and get the heck out of there. And we did that pretty darn quick.
They were able to extract Miss Colton pretty quickly and transported her to the hospital.
4 casualties have been found in the car park and the entrance corridor. How many more were inside was uncertain. With the vast facility ahead, it was decided to wait for SWAT teams before entering.
They set up at the employee entrance door. At that point, they did not hear any shooting. So they determined it was not an active shooter, and now they pulled back and just contained the area.
They essentially waited for the cavalry to get there.
But just who was Jennifer San Marco, the architect of this chaos and catastrophe? And why had this middle-aged woman embarked on her deadly rampage? 1961, the 6th of December. New York, on the US eastern side. Jennifer San Marco was born. She grew up in the borough of Brooklyn.
We're between Avenue L and Avenue K on Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn. And this is across the street from Huddy Junior High School.
Jennifer sat next to me in a class. We had a lot of fun talking, laughing, and not paying attention to class.
Schoolmate Thomas Hogue admits he had a crush on the friendly but quiet teen.
I thought that she was a catch. To catch me out. To be honest with you, I thought she was attractive, she was nice.
Jennifer was always smartly dressed, very easygoing, quiet, able to laugh at jokes. I was kind of a class clown, so the people around us were always laughing, and she kind of joined in the laughter, but not so much in the dialogue.
There are a lot of gaps in her history. She grew up in Brooklyn. She went to high school there. She graduated in '78 from Edward R. Murrow High School.
Right here, we used to line these stairs and hang around, talk. After school, we would all congregate on the corner over there and then pick the activity. We'd play punch ball, which is a rubber ball you hit it, and you run bases like baseball, and touch football and the stuff, stick ball, stuff that's popular street games.
There was never any mention of any family or where she came from or anything like that. It seemed like it was almost kind of something that she didn't want to talk about, to me.
She had a distant family member that lived here in this county, and they were close at one time, back when they were growing up. But after the parents split up, then it said that they grew distant over the time.
She was an outsider outside of that classroom experience that I had. I didn't hear her say a word, boo to anybody else other than that. Other than, all I saw was passing in the hallway, and she was pretty much alone.
San Marco would eventually head out west to the sunshine of Santa Barbara County, where she would pass through jobs as a corrections officer, a police dispatcher, and a school catering assistant, before taking a position with the U.S. Postal Service. There she would develop a reputation as a fast worker in the unique conditions of the vast Goleta facility.
So what happened? She get fired and then she wanted to come back and get revenge or something? Like, what the fuck?
The building, square footage wise, is about the size of 4.5 American football fields.
A mail sorting center is all these boxes and parcels and letters are all coming into the central location, and then they're being parceled out. So there are these massive, loud machines.
The machines that sort letters. And they sort it to where when the carrier picks up his mail in the morning, it's all in order for him when he goes to deliver the mail. It's supposed to be. But there's still letters that the machine can't read, or they're too big or something, that people still throw mail by hand. We do that every night still.
The automation is fairly loud. Some people wear hearing protection. There are some operations where we can wear headphones and listen to a radio or a Walkman. There were plenty of times where I would listen to a book on tape just to help the time go by quicker and stuff like that.
Some people thought it was monotonous or whatever, but the postal work was, of all the work I've done in my life, that was the best work that I ever had. And it was a very educated workforce, because Santa Barbara's a nice place to live. It's pretty expensive, but the good benefits and the steady work of the Postal Service there were some brilliant people who worked there.
The young Jennifer San Marco had studied at one of the East Coast's flagship colleges. Now she was a full-time worker on the postal facility's late shift.
She used to come to work at 9 o'clock. A couple times she wasn't real friendly, and other times she was, it was kind of like night and day sometimes.
It soon became clear to her co-workers that all was not well.
At first, she'd be talking to herself in the cases where we threw the mail in. The conversations with her imaginary friend were fine at first. It was like...
He's saying he was fine with her having a conversation with her imaginary friend at work. No, that's supposed to be a red flag right there, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. Who was that? What's up, bro? Hey, that's supposed to be a red flag right there, man. If somebody talking to their stuff at work, is that a red flag? Tell me in the comments. Comment down below. Is that a red flag? If you at work and you see your coworker over there and he or she talking to themselves while they working, you ain't gonna be like, hold on, what the fuck? Like, I mean, I know they say everybody talk to themselves or whatever, but it's a time and a place for everything.
She'd be sitting there talking, and I'd say, hey, Jennifer, how you doing? And she'd turn and say, oh, hey, Robert, how are you? And I'd say, yeah, I'm doing great. But as time kept going on, it kept getting more and more angry, her conversations with her imaginary friend.
Jennifer's behavior was on a downward spiral and was becoming increasingly irrational.
I spoke to her one time when she was coming in, and she actually started yelling at me, and I didn't really talk to her after that.
I remember her coming in sometimes with lipstick on, where instead of putting on like most women do, she just across like war paint.
San Marco's home life also appeared to be unraveling.
What'd you say, bro? For real, man. Then the man just say she used to come in with lipstick on. She ain't put it on her lips. She just used to smear it all over her face. Oh, what the fuck? Y'all was, yeah, she supposed to have been in psychiatric evaluation.
She lived in a couple of places in Santa Barbara. We talked to one landlord where she lived for about a year and a half, and she remembers having dinner with her. She described her as being really smart and vivacious and beautiful, and she couldn't believe that she was single. And then later on, she bought a condominium. That's where things started getting a little weird.
Jennifer, when she went off the deep end, would start chanting or singing Beatles songs out loud and out in
You feel me?
Condo complex.
Yeah, they supposed to get her some help or something, man. Then she ended up coming back and shooting up the place. Like, that's crazy. But 2 years later, though,
she would get into really heated arguments with her neighbor over noise.
San Marco shared a party wall with her neighbor, Beverly Graham.
Beverly Graham had lived in Santa Barbara for a really long time. She was a really sweet lady. She was a phone operator, I think, for the gas or electric company. She was a really pleasant woman.
The loud music led to a call to the sheriff's office.
The deputies went out for a noise complaint. The noise went down, and the deputies cleared the call and went on for the rest of their duties.
But Jennifer San Marco would not forget the incident. And at work, she became increasingly odd.
It got to the point where she wouldn't acknowledge anybody, talk to anybody, whatever, just like ignore everybody. But she still did her work.
After 6 years working at the postal facility, things came to a head when she made a disturbing comment to long...
Yeah, bro, it was building up, but, bro, she was out of that job for 2 years, so, like, that's fucked up, bro. Like, and then she killed 7 people, and then killed herself at the job. So, that shit.
Time co-worker, Dexter Shannon.
She said to Dexter Shannon something about a woman, a former employee that they knew mutually, who committed suicide. And there was something in that prompted Dexter to go to his supervisor and say, hey, I'm concerned about her.
I wasn't working too far away, but you could hear some yelling, and
yeah, bro.
So everybody's kind of looking to see what's going on. She would
at the post office
go into the office, and they had to call in some law enforcement.
Suddenly, all hell breaks loose. Jennifer goes flying by with the cops in tow.
It was kind of scary. It took 2 guys to, actually hold their legs and their arms and get handcuffs on her. They had no other choice.
The deputies.
Man, this shit, I think it was more than just a weak man for her. I think it was just, like, maybe her just being overworked. You know what I'm saying? They said she was single or whatever, so she was overworked, lonely. You know what I'm saying? So she ain't never get that time to, like, I guess, like, decompress or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, exhale, like, you know what I'm saying? They say she was getting into it with her neighbors. So she ain't never really had nobody there to, like, you know what I'm saying, to scratch her back. If you know what I'm saying, bro.
Handcuffed her and waited for a representative from the mental health assessment team. And that team made the determination to commit her for a 72-hour involuntary hold per 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code.
I figured I would never see her again.
We know that she...
But that might have been because she was crazy, though. She might have been just acting crazy because they say she was wild now on people, so she might have just, like, had a mental breakdown, midlife crisis. You know what I'm saying? That's what they call it, midlife crisis.
Was examined. We know that that there was a psychologist that was examining her and that did make a diagnosis to her, and that she refused treatment. And part of the problem that she had was a failure to admit that she had a problem.
She refused treatment. See, they had a psychologist evaluate her, tried to give her some treatment, but she refused it. Yeah, so that means it was something wrong with her head.
San Marco clearly had a history of problems that would be the hallmark of a descent into some serious mental health problem. So she was clearly an individual who was suffering psychotic delusions and intrusive thoughts, and her behaviour was becoming more removed from reality.
So basically, it sounded like she was going crazy or something. Like, you know what I'm saying?
After her ejection from the Postal Service, San Marco was retired on health grounds. Little did her colleagues know that Jennifer San Marco would one day return.
So basically, the job made her retire early because she had said something to another coworker about somebody on the job or some other job committing suicide. So the coworker had, you know what I'm saying, let management know, you know what I'm saying, how she was talking, and she ended up having to retire early due to like health reasons.
With murder in mind.
So they may have retired early, even though they still probably gave her some type of benefits. And she came back 2 years later. That means she ain't getting no help for 2 years, and she held a grudge for 2 years, and came back and did what she did. Man, that shit ugly.
Over a 6-year period working for the U.S. Postal Service in Goleta, California, Jennifer San Marco's odd behavior had escalated to the point that she was forcibly removed from the building and retired on health grounds. It's thought she decided to head back towards her family in the east, but it seems fate had something else in store.
She packs her pickup truck, she drives east on Route 66. Her car essentially breaks down, and that's why she settled in Milan.
Grand San Milan area is really small. Just not a lot really to do in the area unless you go outside, to sightsee.
New Mexico, flat land, not a lot of grass and a lot of trees and shrubbery and a lot of dirt. Kind of desolate.
We have the mountains around. Smaller towns like Milan are very remote.
If you want to live somewhere where it's nice and quiet, it's a place to be.
Selling her apartment in Goleta, San Marco decided to buy a property in the desert town. Abel Ortega supplied the fuel for her home.
She was real good looking. She had long hair, and she was really nice. And we always, we would take her gas, and she'd come in the next day or whatever and pay for it. She lived in an A-frame house right behind the office here, and she had a 250-gallon tank, and she was a very good customer.
It was just your standard two-story,
He liked them.
single-family home, standard backyard, but then as the land went out farther, it was kind of desolate and desert type.
San Marco would be a regular visitor to the village administrator's offices, where she would become somewhat fixated with employee Sonia Salazar.
For that first year, she came in, she would just pay her bill. She was pretty normal, just a normal customer. As she would go in, she would ask for me. Or if I wasn't there in the office where she could see me, she would be looking for me because my coworker would say, she asked for you. And if I wasn't there, she would just look for me, and then they would help her the best they could, and then she would leave.
But after around 12 months, Jennifer San Marco began to noticeably change.
Probably after a year, she came in with a short, spiky haircut.
It looked as though she had taken scissors to her hair. It was not a haircut. It was obviously something she had done to herself.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Just fine.
I can help you here. And her dress was completely different. She looked like a different person. But through that year, she wasn't as nice to me anymore. And if I wasn't there, she wouldn't even let them help her. She would just leave.
She'd go up to the cash register and she says, I came to pay my bill. And so I'd look it up and I say, well, you don't know nothing. And she'd look to her right and she'd say, see, I told you that I didn't owe a bill, that I had already paid it. And she'd have a little discussion there, you know, with her imaginary friend. And then she'd look like that and she said, okay, well, thank you very much, she says, and then she'd leave, you know.
She would go to grocery stores and she would buy stuff, and then she would just, when she would leave, she'd go out and throw it in the trash, including the money. And that was, and the same, she would buy liquor at other stores and just throw it in the trash.
San Marco entered the village offices, wishing to apply to publish.
She had some real problems, bro. She used to go to the grocery store, buy stuff, and then go throw it in the garbage can with the money, with the change or whatever. And then go to the liquor store, buy liquor, and then go throw it in the garbage. Damn, something was really wrong with that lady.
A series of documents she'd written.
I was sitting at my desk and she sat across from me, and that's when, you know, I noticed that there was something wrong. She was arguing and using foul language, but not towards me. So she would ask me a question, and as I was answering her question, she was then arguing with someone that was not there, in other words. Jennifer had wanted to apply for a business license, which was actually a business that she would name the racist.
I guess probably once everything happened, they probably started going back to seeing everything she was doing, and they started being able to see that, you know what I'm saying, when she go to these stores and when she leave out, that they probably see her on camera throwing that shit away.
Yes.
The title of the publications struck a chord with her former Brooklyn schoolmate, Thomas Hogue.
So this was largely an Italian neighborhood at the time, totally changed now. But in the 70s, this is largely Italian, and most of the people that are hanging out with were Italian.
They started the phenomenon of busing, where young children of color were brought from other neighborhoods into our neighborhood.
The thought was to alleviate crowding in the slums, so to speak.
And that caused a little racial strife. So it was kind of turbulent a little bit. There was some free flowing use of the N-word, and it was a new thing for people in the neighborhoods to experience, so it was a bit uncomfortable.
The only thing that I saw that was interesting to note is that she was part of that whole crew where people were threatened in the neighborhoods by change, and the busing in of people from different neighborhoods, different color.
But despite its inflammatory title, San Marco's racist press was far from a bigoted tirade.
I pledged my life to defend the premise of democracy in this country, and could not in good conscience pay for or justify a politically motivated racist murder. Not one or 1,000.
There were 5 volumes of the racist press. In reading them, I was expecting to see something more overt. I thought that she would come out and start making disparaging remarks against anybody of color or any type of religious backgrounds. And a lot of it was just hard to understand.
The documents alluded to an elaborate conspiracy theory.
The United States government functions as a white supremacist affiliate, embracing Nazi German dogma.
She thought that the government was somehow controlling people, in cahoots with the KKK. She made a link to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that all of those things were sending messages to people to commit murders.
A government conspiracy, psychics, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show? It sounds absurd for a sophisticated nation using this format as a legitimate, plausible strategy.
As 2005 continued, San Marco's neighbors in New Mexico noticed her going downhill rapidly.
I did know of the time that she had stripped at a local gas station.
Right back here, at the edge of the building over here, she would get on her knees and start like praying, you know, and she'd be, you know, with her hands up like this and that, and start praying, and, you know, found it kind of weird.
We clearly know that when individuals have got severe mental health problems, having a significant other there to share your worries, to get advice from, to talk about your symptoms, is clearly much more beneficial than individuals who are on their own. We see individuals who are isolated go down this descent spiral very quickly.
However, there may have been another element playing on San Marco's mind.
Man, that shit fucked up, man. This lady killed all them people, man. She had a big ass just mental breakdown, man.
July
It seemed like she had
1976.
a big mental breakdown or something. And she just thought about what caused it, maybe, and she thought the job probably caused it. And I don't know, that shit.
New York City. Serial killer, the son of Sam, begins a campaign of violence on the streets of the metropolis.
In the past year, a psychopathic gunman has killed 6 people and wounded 8 others in New York City. He calls himself Son of Sam.
You know, she grew up there. She was aware of this. She mentions it in her writing.
Over a 12-month...
Y'all ever heard of that? Son of Sam? Anybody? Man, that shit crazy. People just trying to go get a name for killing and shit. What the fuck? People trying to get, like, character names and shit.
Period. Postal worker David Berkowitz had preyed on young New Yorkers, shooting them with a handgun and spreading panic throughout the city.
He's a postal worker?
You had this guy going around randomly killing people, and they had no idea what this was about. And I think if you were a young person, a teenager, particularly a girl, it would have been terrorizing.
And it appeared San Marco, a petite young woman of Italian descent with long dark hair, fitted exactly what New Yorkers believed to be the son of Sam's preferred target.
People were very nervous, apprehensive. Girls cut their hair, changed the color. Streets were empty. Everybody was just terrified. Had no idea where he was going to pop up next.
For journalist Scott, there are too many parallels in the two tales to ignore.
David Berkowitz was a postal employee who believed that a dog was giving him messages to kill people. Jennifer San Marco was a postal employee. She apparently talked to animals. She thought birds were giving her messages.
The notorious 70s killer also featured in San Marco's writings.
Fact. The post office employed David Berkowitz in the 1970s during his infamous reign of terror as what the media dubbed the Son of Sam killings. Was David Berkowitz a psychotic or psychic killer?
The son of Sam would go on to shoot 6 victims dead and injure more, before being captured in 1977, when Jennifer San Marco was 16. 28 years later, in 2005, San Marco would take the parallels one stage further when she bought a handgun of her own.
The semi-automatic handgun that she had, she purchased from a pawn shop in New Mexico, and waited a 15-day waiting period, and went and picked it up. And at that point, also bought 200 rounds of reloaded 9mm ammunition.
Both these actions, again, are perfectly rational and cogent, so she clearly had periods where she was able to be in touch with reality and certainly knew what she was planning on doing far in advance.
In the backyard, there was a lot of some target practice. Like, you can tell that she or somebody had been out there shooting a gun, practicing on shooting targets. Not knowing how far and how far she was from the target, you could tell that whoever was shooting was a good shot.
And San Marco was about to use her skills to deadly effect. In 2003, after displaying bizarre behavior, postal worker Jennifer San Marco had been forcibly removed from the Goleta sorting facility where she worked and retired on health grounds. She had resettled in New Mexico, where her behavior had become increasingly strange. Now the 44-year-old was about to bring vengeance down upon her former workplace. At the end of January 2006, Jennifer San Marco got in her truck and headed back to California.
Damn, this lady cold-hearted, man. She ain't crazy. She knew what the fuck she
Sometime
was
just
doing.
before the start of the 9 p.m. shift change, Jennifer San Marco arrived at the Goleta postal facility.
She drove all the way here from New Mexico on one trip. Knew when shift change was going to be. Timed her arrival at the gate.
In order to get through the first security system, San Marco tailgated another vehicle and entered the staff car park.
She parked her truck, backed into the stall, about 100 feet from the employee entrance door.
But still, you need a badge to get in the front door.
San Marco held up an employee at gunpoint and demanded he hand over his pass, which would provide electronic access to the secure staff entrance.
And then she told him, okay, now get out of here. And, of course, he took off.
Although she had spared one employee, it wouldn't last. In the car park, San Marco encountered 37-year-old Z. Fairchild and shot her in the head.
She didn't miss. It's pretty steely on her part to be able to do that.
San Marco was seen approaching the staff entrance before turning towards 28-year-old Malika Higgins and shooting her.
She literally walked up to them and shot them almost point blank.
Just outside the employee entrance, San Marco encountered and shot 42-year-old Nicola Grant.
When the shooting was occurring out in the parking lot, there was a couple employees that were in a break room, which was adjacent to the parking lot. And they heard what sounded like gunfire. And they looked out the window. They didn't see her shooting anybody at that point. But she said that she looked at them and smiled.
Jennifer San Marco then entered the building, where around 80 people were working.
Damn.
It was somewhere near 9 o'clock when I heard the first loud report, and it was very loud. When you have as much automation as we have running and the other machines and that going on, it's very loud in there. But this thing was loud.
I had heard some noises, and I thought, we have these things that sometimes the mail comes in on, they're called a pallet.
If you stand them up straight up and then you let it fall, when it hits the ground, it makes a very loud report. So a lot of us thought it was just a pallet dropping. So I expected when I looked up, one of my mail handling friends would be there saying, boy, you're really getting into your work or something like that. What I saw was one of my coworkers grab a female employee, throw her to the side, point to the door, and yell, run.
The one guy came in at 9 and started yelling at somebody shooting. You kind of think, oh, man.
Damn, that shit fucked up, man. To be at work and have some shit like that go down.
Despite workers' disbelief, the situation was very real. San Marco had made her way deeper into the complex. There she would shoot 44-year-old supervisor Charlotte Colton.
She's a beautiful woman physically, but that beauty went way more, it wasn't just skin deep or whatever. She was a bright light in this town that was snuffed out.
One of Charlotte's colleagues dragged her into the entrance corridor, where Deputy Clay Turner later discovered her. But Jennifer San Marco was not finished.
The first shot, there was a pause of about 3 or 4 seconds. Then I heard 2 more shots, pop.
She made her way towards her old workstation.
52-year-old Lupe Schwartz must have seen San Marco coming, but she couldn't save herself.
And there was a pause of about 1 or 2 more seconds, and there was 4 of them in rapid succession. Pop, 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 pop. And that was when I caught some movement in the peripheral vision to my left side, and I heard somebody yell, "Go, go, go."
Grandfather Dexter Shannon was wearing headphones. He never heard San Marco coming and was shot dead at point-blank range.
Damn.
Dexter had...
Oh, man. Damn, he's sitting there with his headphones on. He don't hear shit. Oh, man. Damn.
A bunch of kids and grandkids, but he had served in the Air Force and had been in Vietnam himself.
Oh, he was a very nice man. I never heard Dexter say an unkind word about anyone.
After shooting 6 of her former co-workers, Jennifer San Marco used her handgun to take her own life.
She was laying on the floor in a prone position, and she still clutched the weapon in her hand. So we had to pry her fingers away from the trigger and away from the grip of the gun to get it out of her hand. It was still loaded and cocked and ready to be fired.
Most spree killers want to commit suicide. They believe that this life is not worth living. They're so miserable and they don't see a way out. But first they want to get even with everyone responsible for those miseries. So that's why they engage in a killing spree first, and many of them are suicidal.
For all those involved, the enormity of what had happened began to sink in.
Like it wasn't even real. Until I saw somebody who was actually, laying dead on the sidewalk, I knew that it was real.
4 had died at the scene. 2, including Charlotte Colton, who deputies had desperately tried to comfort, died in hospital.
Deputies were reassuring her and talking to her the entire time.
I just wish we could have gotten there sooner. Because all of us want to prevent destruction and prevent anyone having to feel that kind of pain of losing a loved one.
But this shocking tale was not yet over.
I had just arrived home, and I was laying down, and when my phone went off again, and it was my lieutenant telling me that we had another homicide.
The victim was San Marco's former neighbor, Beverly Graham, who hadn't been seen since the previous day.
Hi, my girlfriend's dead. Please send somebody right away.
We had a homicide reported, and we staged in this area, getting ready to make entry into the apartment.
Miss Graham's boyfriend was the one who discovered the decedent, Miss Graham.
It became clear that before Jennifer San Marco had made her assault on the postal facility, she had decided to settle a score with the neighbor who had complained about her loud music.
The wall you see is the area where San Marco had access to the rear of the apartment. There was hair pulled from somebody's head that was scattered across a coffee table and around the apartment, and there were things that were kind of in disarray.
Jennifer San Marco's deadly spree had cost the lives of 7 innocent people. But the question remained, why?
She went and killed her ex-neighbor before she did what she did at the post office. Damn. She is a fucking cold-hearted bitch.
For San Marco, a woman whose life had been disintegrating slowly around her, I think this was her last roll of the dice. I think the realization that she'd hit rock bottom was perhaps the trigger point that then allowed her to listen to her paranoid beliefs and conspiracy theories.
Most women simply aren't that violent. Her killing spree must have come from a profound belief that her job meant a tremendous amount to her.
There was nothing any of these people did. I mean, even when you look through these weird slights that she was documenting, there was nothing any of these people did that caused them to be targeted in some way.
Whatever her perceived motivations, Jennifer San Marco's ruthless killing spree had devastated countless lives and changed a community forever.
Every time I come to this intersection, very rarely do I not think about that night.
In the days and weeks that unfolded, we got to see and hear more about the victims and their families, and
This by far was the dark part of my career.
There isn't a day that's gone by that I haven't thought about what happened.
Hey, these police officers really shook up behind that shit. Damn, they can't even talk about that shit without breaking down crime. Cause think about it, they said they only had one murder in 14 years, so they don't really see shit like that. That's some shit. Yeah, that shit fucked them up for life.
That night, or who we lost, or the friendships that we shared, or anything.
Yeah,
Shit, this shit fucked me up for life. Just hearing about this shit. Knowing that somebody can come in the post office and do that. Man.
I think about it quite often when I'm walking in the front door. You know, it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, man, that shit crazy, man. That shit fucked up, man. But like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit, hit that notification bell.